Hi everyone, I'm Reed, this is Crowland Publishing. I wasn't going to do this video for a little bit, but it's in the middle of the coronavirus, everyone's locked down. You could maybe do a bit of homework with this video, and more importantly, everything else was a bit grim and depressing, like evil campaigns and stuff, so we're just going to do music in D&D. So you're watching a TV show, right? Or a movie, probably a cool HBO show, and a song comes on, and you've never heard this song before. It's like Jelly Roll Morton, it's a thick funereal jazz or something. Or a cool clutch song like the Soap Makers. Or a weird strange wail, it's Jarbo, the performance artist. Or it's King Dude and he's whispering some sexy song to a Satan girl. Or Pantera comes on, Walk, and you just, metal. Or it's a Rocky Erickson song and he's just singing about, like ghost shooting gods into his head and psychologists doing stuff to his soul. Or it's a Larkin Grimm song and it's just so strange and eerie and beautiful. Or the final boss of music, Diamanda Gallas. And it's perfect. This song just nails the mood, informs the scene. Music, it lives in our heart and it communicates to us profoundly and it just makes a scene powerful and incredible and just... I love it. You love it. We all love it. And can you do that in RPGs? Specifically, D&D? Well, yeah, sometimes, if you're careful and if you plan a little bit. Now, there's two different kinds of music that we're going to have to talk about here. And the first is soundtracks for movies and for games. I'm going to include in the soundtracks, you're going to go mad at me, classical music and opera. Now, I'm going to include that all in one big package because we're going to use it in exactly the same way. Now, it's pretty easy to use a soundtrack for a movie or a game. It's pretty easy to use a famous classical piece. If you know a dramatic set piece is coming up in your game, you use a dramatic set piece music. If you know a sad piece is coming up in the game, you use sad music. It's really not very difficult. And what helps is, of course, again, familiarity with your soundtrack, familiarity with your piece of music. This will also allow you as a DM to react fairly quickly. If a scene suddenly turns violent or suddenly turns action-packed, you can put on a cool action-packed sequence very quickly and seamlessly. Don't slow the game down to make sure that you've got a bit of music that's appropriate. I've done that in the past. It's just counterproductive. I also find it's very, very handy to just have a playlist or a CD ready with sometimes just a sad playlist. Sad music, happy music, scary music, and just pressing the button. You've already carefully thought this through, so you're confident that it's going to effectively communicate the emotionality of the scene. Now be careful not to use very famous soundtracks. Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, maybe a Danny Elfman soundtrack, he's a bit distinctive. It can take you out of the scene very quickly. It's too powerful, it's too much of a reminder of the real world. We talk about immersion in video games, and that's in RPGs as well. The ability to lose yourself within the narrative. You don't want too much of a reminder of someone else's narrative, which is one of the reasons I like to use game soundtracks rather than film soundtracks when I can, just simply to avoid familiarity. Now you need to be a bit more careful with a game soundtrack because a few of them are very synthy. They're designed to be played through older speakers, through bad speakers. They can sound quite synthetic, but other than that, the rules are pretty much the same. You play a dramatic song during a dramatic sequence. You play a sad song, sad music during a sad scene. Easy peasy, squeeze the lemon. I really like Gothic 3 soundtrack. I like Morrowind soundtrack. I love the Diablo 3 soundtrack. I will play Angelus Thanatos from Silent Hill 2 at the slightest provocation. So game soundtracks, have a think about them. They might be useful to you. Which brings us to the second part of the video. Songs, contemporary songs, rock music, pop music, electronica, whatever you want to call it, whatever you like. Now we're going to focus in specifically on D&D and fantasy games because there's two different sets of rules here. Some people find contemporary music in a sort of pseudo-historical thing like a fantasy game, it ruins their immersion. Modern sounds take them out of the scene entirely. Anything more than a lute and they don't like it. So you need to talk to your group whether or not they find this appropriate. In other games, very, very easy. In Call of Cthulhu, you just look up 1930s jazz, 1930s popular music. In a Shadowrun game or a Cyberpunk 2020, there you go, game, you just play whatever you like now. If you're playing a vampire game or a World of Darkness game, the Crow soundtrack has been used for 1,000 years, it'll be used for 1,000 more. But if we're talking about fantasy, run it by your players. There is, however, a solution. We'll get to that in a minute. But again, just run it by your players. Some people just really find it jars with the tone. But if you want to use songs to really enhance your D&D game, well, it helps to be a music nerd to start. To really, really like pop songs. If you haven't bought an album since Marillion's last album, or No Jacket Required by Phil Collins or something, maybe this isn't going to work out for you. But if you find pop music really inspiring and interesting, I highly recommend that you go this way. It can be a very, very effective technique. So first things first, you have to think about yourself like you are planning out the soundtrack to a film. I find, and I'm just talking more conceptually here than actually giving you homework, but what I have done over the years is that I listen very, very carefully to the songs that I have a strong emotional response to because of the actual song themselves. Right? There's a song by a band called Rome I love called Those Who Fell in Love with the Sea. I find that in and of itself a somber, sad song. The music is slow, the music is sad, the song's lyrics are quite sad. I find it in and of itself an effective piece of atmospheric music. I got broken up to by a very, very silly Frank Zappa song one day. I can't listen to it to this day. That doesn't make it a sad song. That's an effective somber song to use in the same circumstances. So you need to be careful about that. But helping you make smarter decisions about your songs, I just literally go through, and again, conceptually, I'm not actually giving you homework. I take all the songs I love that I find emotionally powerful, that I think would be effective in a film or a TV show, and I make lists of them. So if I'm looking for action songs, maybe I'm going to do Kick Out the Jams by MC5. It's an all-time classic. Berlin by Judas Priest. I find that a really fighty song. I play that song, I'm like, yeah, let's throw down. If I want to do a really sad song, I might use, I don't know, Diamonds and Rust by Joan Baez, or Love Henry by Judy Henske, or a beautiful Scottish band called Arab Strap who write these really sad songs about heartbreak. If I'm going to use a boss fight, I might use something like Planets Collide by Crowbar, or any Paradise Lost song. And then I make up a mixtape, or, as the kids probably have it today, a playlist. Playlists are actually better. Set it up on Spotify, set it up on YouTube, and you can have a sad bit playlist, a happy bit playlist, a love song playlist, and you just click the buttons through your laptop or through your tablet or whatever. Now, that sounds pretty cool, but your D&D group is saying, no, we don't want to use contemporary music. There's two things I should say to them. One, you should watch shows like Peaky Blinders and Dickinson and see how effectively modern music was used in historical pieces. It can work. It's a really, really strange, high risk, but excellent technique when you do use it. And the second is there is a kind of music called neo-folk. It's just contemporary musicians playing for a contemporary audience using old instruments, old songs, and it creates a sort of halfway point between a modern song with modern emotions for a modern audience and a fantasy sounding song. So I would recommend that you go and listen to bands like In Gowan Ring and Blood Axis and Wand in the Moon, and oh man, there's loads of neo-folk bands. Just type it into the old Google machine. Now there's one word of warning I have about using contemporary songs rather than soundtracks, in that a song might only last about 5 minutes and it's not going to have the same tone all the way through. A soundtrack is designed specifically to maintain one tone, but a song is not built around the same purpose. So you need to be careful in how you play a song, because if nothing else, a D&D fight can last half an hour and a fight scene in a film might last 2 minutes. So you might just want to have a lengthy playlist of just fight songs that you just play and let it go, because you're going to be there for a while. And if you're just repeating the same song over and over during the scene, it just becomes annoying, it loses its power, and you're just there in a supermarket on Muzak. So this is a problem. You need to be aware of it. Don't rely on just one song. Rely on 10 songs for a sequence. Rely on 30 songs. This is what I mean about homework. This can take a while to really build up a library of songs, and that's why it's effective to be someone who already really, really likes music, because you are just naturally going to have a pretty large library of songs in your head that you can go, oh, that would be effective for a betrayal scene. That would be effective for a siege scene. That would be a really great Illithid song. And always remember, as a DM, ultimately this is just another tool. Atmosphere and emotion are always your primary responsibility. This is just an enhancement. So there you go. Have good playlists ready. Be familiar with your source material. Do a bit of homework. Do a bit of exercises beforehand so that this is all easy to DM through. You just press the buttons without too much of a delay. And I think that you will really find this an effective tool as a DM. Why don't you tell me in the comments or Twitter me or whatever and tell me what songs you like and what soundtracks you have found effective in your games. Cheers, guys. Give us a like. Bye-bye.